TYT Sports, everybody. Turks and Jerks. Time for the Jerks. It's Jason Rubin, J.R. Jackson, and Ben Mankiewicz. J.R., would you lower your head into your computer for a brief moment? All the way down? All the way. Get lower. Get low. You got to get low.
Is it possible?
You got to get low. There we go.
What are we looking
This
for?
is the last week we'll be spelling Jerks with an E. It's Turks and Jerks. Jerks is with a U.
I could have
You can count on it next. You could have, but I thought it'd be funnier.
See, now that you've explained to the audience.
I don't think you need to explain it to the audience. I really don't.
No, you do. You absolutely needed to.
Nah, not the people watching. Not these smart people. Let's do Jerks. Who bothered you? Who offended you? Who got your...
Can I go? Can I go?
We'll start with
Let him go. Let him go. He doesn't like being in the middle.
My Rams. But it's not, it relates to the way they played like garbage. But in reality, it was the pyrotechnic crew in the stadium. Yeah. They run out of the tunnel, you know, there's fireworks going off because this team is awesome. Yet, you know, fireworks, the first part of that word is fire. And what's underneath the field, or underneath these fireworks is a field. It lands on it and fires start. You know, in California, in many places in Southern California, you're not allowed to have fireworks because they start fires. And we have this drought problem. And since it doesn't rain inside of dome stadiums, it's not going to put any fires out.
You know, my brother and I, we played a game growing up.
I'm sorry, so 26-minute delay. This is to start the game. And
20, is that all it was? 26? Yeah.
26-minute delay to start the game.
Yeah, outrageous. So you see it. My brother and I, we played this game where the trivial things we would do if we were president, right? What executive orders we would issue. And he would be like, one of his is always ban motorcycles. They're done. They're done. You can't ride a motorcycle, can't construct one, can't buy one, can't operate one. You can have them in museums. Like that's
Remember the days.
Right, exactly. Right. Mine, I think, would be enormously popular. I realize there are going to be some questions about the municipal state authority somewhere, but the power of the federal government is going to come down. Look, I'd be interested in banning fireworks altogether, but I understand that children like them, right?
They like to blow their hands up.
Sure, they like to blow their hands up. The NFL has a great history with fireworks. I got an idea. So you can't have fireworks ever inside under any circumstance. Here's what you do when the Rams run out on the field. You get a big, the thing they run through in high school. They run through the big banner. It breaks through. Look, Nick Foles is leading us out on the field. Yeah! And then, you know what you do? Play music. You have cheerleaders. There are a lot of ways to do this. A lot of ways to do this. You can't set off a fire in a dome stadium. It's insane. I'm telling you, they think they got it controlled. Somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get hurt. And by the way, the fire on that field, because the turf is so nasty, was blue. Yeah.
It's obviously artificial. I don't know whether it was turf, the fireworks. So it's probably like the reaction to the whatever is in this turf.
Nothing about that was a good idea. You cannot set off pyrotechnics indoors.
That's like the backbone of every 80s rock band.
Yeah, I know. And we also know that there's been some...
We don't need the 80s rock
There have been overwhelming tragedies.
Look what happened to Michael Jackson.
Not indoors. No fire. You can't do it.
He was in a Pepsi commercial and he had his Jerry curl and fire hit it.
And look what they're cleaning up. Look what they're cleaning up.
It's kind of hard to see. There it is, the bottom right. You see the
bottom right, the blue flame.
So they had a shop vac out.
Yeah.
And they had some rakes and so it took them a lot of cleanup.
It's amazing
this
what
was
they
on the
have.
5-yard line, I think is what happened.
It was right by the end.
So it was right where they'd play.
Ironically, is where the Rams never were.
Exactly.
The entire
so
game.
Leading to part 2 of this horrible situation, that was the only fireworks that the Rams set off the whole game because they suck. So the final was 12-6 against the Steelers. The Rams traded Sam Bradford for apparently Brad Samford because it's the same fucking quarterback they had last year. I wonder when his knee's going to go out. So I'm sorry. So Nick Foles, who was Brad Samford, 19 to 28.
Brad Samford.
Brad Samford.
By the way,
I'm gonna call him that all season.
It's my favorite thing by far.
He had 19 to 28, 197, 0 touchdowns. The leading rushers, 1 for 24 for no touchdowns, 9 for 16 for no touchdowns. I'm looking at this line and I'm seeing no touchdowns for all the leaders of the team. No touchdowns. So the problem is the Rams need to, I guess, put a couple of the pyrotechnic guys on the field. Maybe they can score some points. They can light a couple fires out there. It's painful to watch these guys. After the first week, and the Rams beat the Seahawks, and I was complaining to some Cowboys fans because they should have lost, and they were celebrating like they just won the Super Bowl, as if they're going. And they said, well, you guys looked great this week. I was like, yeah, but, I'm a little worried. I don't want to say anything about this team yet. I think I said it here.
You did?
I don't want to say anything about this team yet because I'm still scared because they're going to settle into being the Rams. They have a great D-line. And fine, we only give up 12 points. You got to score something.
Based off Ben's Turks, you should probably be calling up Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt.
That's right.
48 years old, they might be pretty effective.
Let's get Ron, Jesse, and Harold Jackson.
We need Marshall back out there.
By the way, you're the quarterback that Chad Sanford replaced.
Brad Sanford.
Sorry, Brad Sanford. So the quarterback that your former quarterback, Sam Bradford. Jenk was here and he ripped Bradford and the Eagles last week. They were his jerks of the week. They won this week, 24-17. Held on after getting the Sproles punt return. Bradford was 14 of 28 for 118 yards.
Yeah, because he's never
118.
He's never thrown for 150 plus, according to Jenk Jr.
So Jenk was like, if the pass is more than 7 yards, Jenk's advice was, don't throw it. Just don't do it. So he was 4.2 per attempt. That is staggeringly low. What's amazing is that Ryan Fitzpatrick threw for 283 yards for the Jets, but he threw the ball 58 times. 58 times. He only was 4.9 per, and he threw 3 picks. Bradford, Chad, whatever. He didn't throw a pick, and he did throw the 1 touchdown pass. So anyway, there we go. A good call on that, Jay.
Yeah. So I'm going to rip into the Dolphins a little bit, and it's easy to just blame Joe Philbin, who, conveniently is the Turk behind me, the jerk behind me, I should say. But there's a few other observations that came from the Bills and the Dolphins game. One being a nod to Rex Ryan for being kind of the most clever troll maybe in the NFL, sending out ex-Dolphins players as co-captains, Richie Incognito and Charles Clay. In the beginning of the game, Clay proceeded to destroy. And it's almost as if the Dolphins' defensive backfield gave up on half the times that Clay got into the defensive backfield. It wasn't like he'd do a juke move. They would kind of just fall over, kind of just go right to their knees, and Clay would go right around him. But Philbin, there's a saying I saw from Pro Football Talk. I'm sure you guys have heard this before. If you don't know who the fool at the poker table is, you're probably the fool. Mm-hmm. That is Joe Philbin. In his press conference afterwards, it is pathetic when he goes, I know it's me. I know that we have to get our team together. I know that our team needs he doesn't have answers. He doesn't seem even close to competent enough. In addition to that, Ryan Tannehill is not a quarterback who should ever be throwing the ball 50 times in a game. Similar to, I think, a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick who shouldn't be throwing the ball 58 times in a game. You have weapons on that team that can make things work. You have Lamar Miller, who's not a terrible running back. Get some kind of running game going, even if it's not. Granted, the Bills have a very strong defense.
And that game was over so quickly. That was the problem of that game, is that it
was over immediately. But then Joe Philbin adds it's even worse when he says, quote, I'm going to look at the tape and see what happened today. You're on the field for 60 minutes. It's happening right in front of you, which I guess is exactly the reason why and we were talking before this started, I think there's zero chance Joe Philbin makes it to Week 8. And I think if the Dolphins were smart, if Dennis Hickey, their general manager, was smart, fire him today. You're going to be 8-8 at best.
Start calling him Regis.
That's why I did that originally, because I mistakenly.
So Stephen Ross is the owner of the Dolphins. It really, whether Philbin survives.
Stephen Ross is or Dennis Hickey is?
The owner.
Oh, general manager is Dennis Hickey, sorry. Yes.
So,
go on.
It depends on what kind of owner you are if you're going to make a change in Week 8. There's some owners who are just going to say, we're riding out the season.
Has that ever worked out?
I don't think you should ever have an interim. Let me rephrase that. No, I got my own point wrong. If you want to fire a guy, you should fire him. You should fire him at the point you want to fire him, because if you're positive that Philbin isn't the guy, if you're 1-4, suppose you put on a streak and you end up 9-7 and make the playoffs and win a game, then you can't fire him. Like, if you know you want to fire the guy, don't let him work himself out of it. Fire him.
Fire him.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't know what kind of owner Ross is and how loyal he is to Philbin and whether he'd stick with him. But look, and now this will get to my point about who the jerk is. The jerks are us, and it's us. It could be us every week. It's fandom. It's the way we think about football. It's the manner in which we all think we're experts. And some of us, me, are smarter than others. There's no question. But thank you, JR. But we can't not make. Jack and I were talking about this last. Football fans cannot be declarative. In their opinions. We cannot wait. We just don't have it. The Cowboys, right? They lose Des Bryant in the opener, but they come back and they beat the Giants in impressive fashion. Forgetting the fact that if the Giants orchestrate the clock right at the end, that game, worst case scenario, probably goes to overtime if the Giants go for it on 4th down.
It was actually, if they orchestrated it correctly, it was impossible for it not to, at worst, go to overtime.
That's right. If they did it correctly, almost certainly, well, the Cowboys still could have scored on that last drive, but unlikely because they would have gone for a field goal. But mostly, they win. And if Eli isn't telling Rashad Jennings not to score, I mean, just stuff that is mind-numbing, then the Cowboys lose that game. They just lose at home to the Giants. We don't think badly or good about them. It just that's the way it turned out. Then they play in what is pretty much universally recognized as the worst football game of the last 5 years and beat the Eagles. So they're 2-0, but they could easily be 0-2. I mean, they blocked a kick and ran it back for a touchdown. It was the only touchdown in that game when the game was competitively being played until the nonsense score at the end to Terrence Williams. And then they come out and they run Joseph Randle, and he looked great. I mean, I tried to trade Joseph, in addition to my one league trading A.J. Green and Matt Ryan for Andrew Luck and T.J. Yeldon.
Who'd you trade that?
Yeah, it was you. You guys offered the trade. I just took it. I like taking trades. You offer me a trade, there's a good chance I'll take it. So then I tried to get. I don't have a tight end. I tried to get Greg Olson from the guy who has Jordan Reed too, and I was offering him Yeldon because I don't know, he might do it before the game. And then I was like, you know what, I want him. I'm going to offer him Randall. And then he didn't get back to me, and I was like, oh, thank God. Because now I'll offer him Yeldon, I'll get Reed. I'll be happy. I'll be pleased. But we watch Randall run, and it's 14-0, 21-7, and 28-14 Cowboys, and then they stopped scoring, and the better team won that game. And we were like, and you heard the announcer say it, because they do it too, Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, who are really good at their jobs. But they were saying, this Cowboy defense, I think by the end of the year, I think it was Buck, but it might have been Aikman. It seems like the point a color commentator would have made. By the end of the year, there's going to be one of the elite defenses in the league. Well, the Falcons scored 39 points in three quarters. They were wrong. We're all wrong. And it turns out the Cowboys are 2-1, and they're terrible. They may not be terrible, because that's an overstatement, too. We don't know. Their defense will try to hold them together. They'll run the ball. But without Des Bryant and Tony Romo, it's probably what the logic.
And then if they had lost those two games like you said they probably should have, then after losing those two stars, people go, oh, they're in serious trouble. This is
right, totally. But even if they'd just been 1-1, we wouldn't have had this same overreaction. Oh, look at the Cowboys. They're going to keep themselves. Brandon Weeden is among the worst starting quarterbacks historically that we've had in the last over the last 5 years. Now, he's got a big arm, like Jerry Jones said, and maybe he'll figure it out. But I don't think so. Just the way that interception was, his first pick, made me think, after opening the game 9 for 9, I'm like, oh, right, Brandon Weeden. It's a super hard position. It's an incredibly hard position. And I'm rooting for, who doesn't want Brandon Weeden, a rookie at 28, to make it, right? It couldn't be rooting more for Brandon Weeden. If he didn't play for the Cowboys, I'd put a poster of him up in my room, and I hope he makes it. But we just don't get it as fans. We react to every situation. I mean, remember the Vikings. The Vikings played and lost to the Niners. The Niners looked completely incompetent on Sunday. Incompetent. Like they were a team that lost all their best players and have a high school coach running the team who I also want to succeed.
You also have a poster up on your wall.
I want Jim Tupchell to succeed so bad, but I am dubious that that's going to happen. And then, so the Niners, who looked terrible last week against the Steelers, then look extra terrible this week. They crushed the Vikings the last 2.5 quarters of that game. Crushed them, we thought. And Michael Schur writing, hey, it's great to be a Niner fan again. It's going to be fun. No, it isn't going to be fun. You're going to be horrible. And then the Vikings turn around and beat the Lions handily last week, and they crushed the Chargers. The Vikings are fine. They played a bad game. They're fine. They're fine. The Cowboys are terrible. The Niners are terrible. The Dolphins need to fire their coach. The Falcons are awesome, except they were down by 10 points in the fourth quarter of all 3 games. The first time in NFL history a team has been down by double-digit points in the fourth quarter and came back and won, ever. Guess what happens if you keep being behind by more than 10 points in the fourth quarter? You're going to start losing. I guarantee it. So I don't know. The Patriots are good. There. That I'm pretty sure of.